A former Spanish teacher at a Michigan Catholic high school received 15 years in prison after pleading guilty to sex abuse charges involving a 15-year-old student. Huffington Post reports, quote, Kathryn Ronk, who's 30 years old, admitted to having sex with a sophomore. She originally faced 5 counts of criminal sexual misconduct, but took a plea deal last month for lesser charges. Instead of life in prison, she got 15 years with parole eligibility in 5.5 years. In the courtroom, she said the following, quote, I'm so sorry for the victim and his family, for the school and the community, for my family, and I'm so sorry for my husband. Okay, so interesting so far. Now let me go ahead and show you her picture. Yeah, about that. Let me bite my tongue here. So here are some more details on this. Get your lotion ready. Quote, cops said Ronk had sex with the boy in different classrooms at the school, between class and after hours. She also provided him with alcohol and had sex with him in a car. So here's what the judge said about this. This is pretty interesting. She said, quote, 15 is 15. He's still a boy figuring out the ways in the world. If this was a male teacher who had been involved with a 15-year-old female, there would be people here hanging from the ceiling trying to get every drop of blood. But because it is a woman, there seems to be a winking about what happened. Okay, so there are a bunch of different angles to this story. But first off, let's be clear here, or I should be clear about how I would feel in this scenario. If it was me when I was 15, in all seriousness, I would have been ecstatic over this. Now, I'm not saying that to cast judgment on others, and I'm not saying that that's how we should craft the law. I'm just saying, for me specifically, I would have been like, yes, that's the best day of my life ever, it's the best day ever. But okay, moving on to more serious stuff here. How should this be handled from a legal perspective? Well, look, the age of 15 is a borderline age, okay? It's not as clear as something like a 12-year-old and a 52-year-old in that scenario. Because there, I think we could all agree, yes, no matter what, you know, that guy's got to get locked up and we feel horrible, et cetera, et cetera. But when it's 15, I mean, I've always said, I've maintained from the beginning that I think 16 years old should be the legal age for everything, So 15, it's a borderline age, right? Some people at 15 are more advanced than other people at 15. So to try to act like this isn't a much more complicated question than if somebody's 12, I think you're being disingenuous here, and I think the judge is being a little disingenuous where she acts like it's such a black and white issue. It's not. It's a hard issue. And look, it's a hard issue whether it's a guy or a girl. If it's a 30-year-old guy and a 15-year-old girl, it's still a somewhat hard issue, or at least a harder issue than if we're talking about a 12-year-old and a 50-something-year-old. So, since this is a borderline case, am I going to punish her? Yes, I am. But that punishment, first of all, it's not going to start off with, maybe life in prison? No. It would probably... It wouldn't be 15 years either. I think that's crazy as well. It would probably be something like house arrest or probation or a large fine, or at worst, probably like community service, or the strongest I would go is like a year in jail, but I think that's a little ridiculous. And again, to be clear, I'm not doing like the double standard thing where I say, well, if it's a guy and a girl and a guy... No. What I'm saying is, regardless of if it's a guy, girl, guy, whoever the abuser is in any hypothetical scenario, in this case, with a 15-year-old and a 30-year-old and all the relevant facts, I have to say, worst I'd do is a year or community service, but more likely like probation or house arrest or a fine. Because I think that when there's such a gray area, like in this case, to come down as hard as they did, doesn't make sense.